Hi, I'm Vaibhav,
And I'm Alexis,
and this is Why Poland podcast.
where we talk to people from all over the world who have chosen to make Poland their home.
And today we have a very special guest, Verda Uyar.
She is a journalist from Turkey who has recently moved to Poland 6 months ago.
Let's get started.
Hi, Verda. Thank you for joining us. We'll just dive right in. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you found yourself in Poland?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for having me. And I have to say it one another time that I really appreciate you guys doing this. I think it's very important. So I moved here 6 months ago from Istanbul. I got a work offer as a digital product manager in a media company. And I was already actually working in their Turkish office for 3.5 years. And last summer, they closed down the Turkish operations. I thought to myself, okay, I don't have anything binding me in Istanbul right now. I mean, of course, I have my whole family and my friends. But I said, okay, Warsaw, that's a new thing for me. So I found myself here.
So your background is in journalism then, it sounds like.
Yes. So I studied sociology and journalism, then with a master's in policy. And I had most of my job experiences in journalism because my aspiration was to become a diplomatic journalist, actually. So I had certain experiences building up on that. I worked mostly for independent outlets in Turkey, doing political fact-checking and also some analysis on Turkey's political and economic environment. But 3.5 years ago, I stopped doing this as my main source of income. I still continue doing that for a couple of years as a side hustle, but currently I shifted more towards like entertainment part of media. Mm-hmm. But deep inside, I still keep that journalistic like aspirations and my ideals. And I definitely want to like go back on it sometime. But for now, no.
This is where you're at. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but what was the sort of motive, if you want to sort of deep dive into that as well? Why did you make that switch from independent journalism to the media outlet?
So maybe I can start from saying that this was actually my father's dream. In 1980s, himself studied journalism. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but 1980s was a very difficult time in Turkey because there was a military coup and there were like mass, detainments and such a politically challenging environment. And he actually studied journalism at a time like that. And when he graduated, I know from his stories that he did it for a couple of years. But then when he actually wanted to have like a family and, to have a secure income and to have like a prospect of future, he had to stop it and he changed his business. So my story is a little bit similar to that. In my university years and also the years following after my graduation, I had my ideal, like there is a politically hostile environment right now, and I want to tackle with it, through independent journalism based on, objectivity and also facts, and actually to, shape the public opinion with truths and so on regarding the wrongdoings of the current government. But of course, that ideal came a bit expensive, because there is a constant threat you are receiving. There is a fear for your life because it's unfortunately very easy to be punished for just using your right to freedom of expression. So I had to, when my age was going up, when I was, now I sounded like I'm a bit old, but I'm turning 30 next month. So of course, I wanted more stability and security. That's why, hence to change, the transition to another aspect of media.
First of all, thanks for that open answer. I think, that's very brave of you that you will even sort of continue doing that for many years and you still want to do that.
Exactly.
And hopefully that change will come back in your life and you'll be able to do what you love. With that said, I really also wish you all the best with your current role. And do you want to sort of explain what you're doing right now in Poland, in Warsaw? You moved here 6 months ago. Sort of just, expand people's knowledge who are listening and watching us at this moment, because we've not had anyone who's from the media industry before. No. So it would be interesting for people to know.
Sure. So I work at a media group and my role is a digital product manager. So to give you a basic overview, the company is distributing entertainment content to platforms, but also within its own OTT platforms. And I am particularly overseeing the monetization of our digital presence. So let's say once the sales team concludes a sale of certain titles like movies and series to external platforms, I come into stage to increase the viewership of those titles. So what we do is that we engage in B2B joint marketing activities with that client. And I am on a monthly basis reporting on the viewership and the financial data of those titles to map out, certain patterns. For instance, I'm overseeing different territories, and it's very exciting to see like which nationalities are streaming what type of content. For example, it always strikes me that in Netherlands there is a very big interest in horror titles. Especially, these like Scandinavian independent thrillers, And of course, there could be, more in-depth analysis on like viewership patterns, but I always associate it with that they are having, such a problemless life that they tune into like, TV to have, something to,
Adrenaline.
Exactly, yeah. Whereas in countries like mine, like in Turkey, we like drama, passion, romance, or like
Turkish
war.
dramas are quite popular around the world.
Yes. And that's also one of the aspect of my work. I said like series in addition to movies, and we actually distribute quite amount of Turkish series. And as you said, like it has an audience worldwide. But even within that as well, there are some different patterns when it comes to what type of Turkish series they like. Like since I'm a bit familiar with the content, I understand when we on the poster have, one of those like Turkish looking guys, it's a hit. It's a hit for me as well, like of course like
I'm watching this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with that said, what kind of shows, genres Polish people
Yeah, I was
watch?
going to ask that. Yeah.
Here, I can say that there's an educated cinephile group. I find it to be. Yeah, I think here there's a good amount of consumers for, like art house, black and white. Because, like cinema is a central part of the Polish culture here. Like, of course, maybe I should say at this point that I've been here for only 6 months, so I cannot generalize. But I see a lot of like cinemas and a culture like revolving around it. So I think here the Polish community is educated, like they know what they're consuming, like they are knowledgeable about like cinematography and so on. And I would say they tend to watch titles in line with that. But also it depends, on TV, on digital, on YouTube, because it's different audiences. Like, for example, on YouTube, it tends to be more like war action content, but maybe it makes sense because it's more male audience tuning in there and so on. But yeah, I can say in average they are quite like knowledgeable cinema consumers.
So you're basically studying the SEO of different platforms and looking at what people are basically searching and based on which what they're watching. Yes.
Of course, I use that insight in, collaborating with our content and scheduling departments to say, yes, like this is what's working in this platform at this current time, because it also differs. Like, for example, when I first started in the company, there were a lot of like war and action content being consumed, but it's actually on the decline now a bit worldwide because again, it's in relation to like why people are tuning into digital to consume, an entertainment content. If in the world's reality right now, there are, war going on almost everywhere, they actually tune in to watch something to escape from that reality, Right. But maybe over the course of time, it's going to change. So yes, like I keep regularly track of these trends and try to, brainstorm within the company to make sure we have the most performing and resonating content in the markets that we are available.
So I had a question about, since your passion is journalism and so was your father's passion, it's an industry that's gone through a lot of change, right? Very, very rapid change, especially in the last 10 to 15 years. And it still is a very aspirational field to get into, but we've seen increasingly in many countries around the world, it's also become increasingly dangerous. Whilst at the same time, you also have a movement from centralized distribution of information to a very decentralized redistribution of information or misinformation. As a journalist, how has that sort of informed the way that you view journalism, and how do you see it going forward, given it's increasingly becoming a very dangerous thing to do?
Yes. So I think first it makes you think of new forms to do it, because maybe before, like in the conventional understanding of media, there was the newspapers, the mainstream newspapers and the TV channels. And of course, for journalism students like me, the ideal was to, secure a job in one of those. And that was what I did as well. Like throughout my studies, I had, the dream of securing a job and the biggest newspaper in Turkey, but also because at the time it was still one of the remaining independent ones, you know. Personally, I don't believe journalism should be, you know, like impartial and, you know, completely objective. No, I think you still should have a political stance, but you should be giving inequality, like a space for public discussion for all views, you know. But I don't believe in just like merely reporting facts and anything. But still, it might come across as maybe controversial, but I think, like, especially in countries like Turkey, you know, it has a very big force. It has a very big, you know, power to shape the public opinion. And I think journalists should use it. So, as I said, it was 2013 when I started university, and most of the media companies were already being bought by, you know, the government affiliated big holdings. So it's the same story, you know, almost everywhere. So, you know, they started to like differ in terms of their political view in a very, you know, like strict way. Like we started to point fingers at outlets like, okay, this is, you know, government affiliate. This is, you know, more to say left wing or opposition media, you know. And it started to matter around those times, like, you know, which side you were from, because 2013, maybe again, you can recall, we had vast protests around the country by people, you know, striving for democracy. So in return, it was also the time when the political repression like geared up. So media was more and more in control by the government. And also we started to question its credibility. But again, you know, it gave me as a journalism student only, you know, even more, you know, passion or hope to be a part of this industry. So I actually did my first internship in the newspaper I wanted. But it was that year that they recently changed ownership and also became one of the government affiliate like media patrons companies. So I already witnessed the discourse being, you know, very much influenced by the top, you know, like how it should be written and, you know, like delivered to the people. I would be willing to write about a piece in a certain way, and it would get, you know, quite a lot of last minute cuts, you know. So I realized, you know, this is not what the order I want to, you know, keep reproducing and also be a part of. And I realized, you know, like I could still do my passion in alternative ways. So I joined instead at Turkey's first political fact-checking organization. And that was really like something that maybe shaped me as a, you know, political person, or also as like a professional person who I am today. I was feeling, you know, very productive, but also, you know, the fact that I had, you know, a public benefit to it in return. So basically we were verifying any statement by any political figure. So it also included like people from any other parts. And then using open data sources, we were, you know, publishing articles saying this political figure said this, but this is the open data we found, so it's, you know, true or not. And I continued that doing a lot of years. Then I wanted to keep trend of, you know, like this ever-changing journalism forms. And 3 years ago, I saw, for instance, that newsletters are coming of age, because now, you know, people were already fed up with the situation in the country. And, you know, there were already a lot of independent outlets coming on, and they actually wanted to, you know, rely on more a customized or, you know, a personalized source for information, like detailing them in a pack. So I started working as an editor in a political newsletter. So as for journalists at the time, we were sending out weekly Turkish politics report. But we were doing it in a satirical tone, sort of, you know, making fun of it. Because, yes, it's hard to consume. But here, like, we put everything into context and just show you, you know, the bollocks around Turkish politics. And it was, you know, it became quite popular around diplomats or academicians working with regards to Turkey. So I continued that for 3 years as well. Then I did, like, some of their economy editions and so on.
So usually these fact-checking organizations, right, in a country where there's no 100% democracy, right?
Let's say it like that.
Yeah, get a lot of hate. Yeah. How did you sort of deal with that? And, you know, then you went and did something, you wrote satirical pieces about government, right? And you were probably asking tough questions. So did you sort of get any kind of hate towards your way, towards, you know, your organization that you were part of, or... And then how are you still managing to do all of that? Because usually the accusation is that you were funded by the opposition or, you are anti-national, so to speak. So then how does one deal with it?
I think the first thing is that you trust yourself and the work that you're putting there. As you said, there is some funds or, like affiliations going behind the NGOs and organizations like that as well. So again, maybe we cannot talk about 100% impartiality because at the end of the day, yes, those like founding organizations also maybe not directly, but has a say in what you publish or not because you are sort of like representing their values and views as well. But I think the methodology, the fact that you are using only facts and data gives you, credibility and trust in the work that you're doing. But yes, you receive threats. I think it was stemming mostly from the fact that people were not understanding which side you are from. The situation I just explained previously, because it's very politically polarized in Turkey. Like you are either from them or them.
Yeah.
So when they see a news outlet both falsifying the president, but also opposition figures, they're confused. They're like, okay, but who is funding you? And then you have to, explain to them
that you're truly independent.
Exactly. So the threats were actually like threats, meaning more like unpleasant comments or, some emails from the politicians themselves, actually. It wasn't like a direct threat or whatsoever, but, some stuff like, oh, I actually didn't say it like that. Or, could you please remove your article falsifying me and everything? And these were actually coming from opposition people as well. Everybody was assuming it would be mostly the ruling government that would, want us to remove.
Yeah.
But no, it was coming from both sides. And I think the best thing you can do is to avoid it. If you trust your methodology, if you're sure you are using, transparent and like credible, reliable, data-driven resources in your journalistic work, you have nothing to be afraid of.
You talked about how you personally think journalism should have a perspective, right? There should be space for people to be able to speak and share their opinions, but you think that you should have a perspective, a voice. In a world where everybody has a voice with regards to like TikTok and obviously YouTube and Instagram, everybody becomes a journalist in a weird way. How do you think that has influenced both your profession? Like, has it taken away or provided new opportunities for that profession? But then on the other hand, is that not like fueling this polarity that you were talking about, where you're either on one side or the other, which is not just a Turkish phenomenon, obviously. We're seeing that all over the world. Is it a net positive or a net negative, the social media side of journalism?
I would say both.
Okay.
So maybe to explain what I meant, but by saying like that it shouldn't be, impartial, like completely. I can give an example from, the current political ongoings in Turkey. As you may know, there are protests criticizing the government's decision to jail the opposition's main presidential candidate by the time of recording this now, because I really cannot, even foresee what might happen by the time this goes published. He is in jail, Istanbul's, the biggest city in Turkey's mayor. So first they over the course of a day, they annulled his diploma first so that, he could technically be ineligible to run as a presidential candidate. And the next day, in the early mornings, he was detained over some arbitrary charges, And of course, it sparked again, a fuel, and people went to the streets. And now every day, like there are demonstrations going on. So that's one way of journalism to say that the opposition's biggest, president candidate, perhaps like the biggest rival, is in jail. But also another thing to actually go into law around it and to question the reliability of this decision, and to actually, I don't know, like put in more investigative or, critical thought as to why this is happening, this decision came right now, and where it puts, stands in the general, like the bigger picture, is what I'm saying. Of course, more pro-government outlets are, right now demonizing those protesting in the street, saying, they're terrorists, they're vandals, they're vandalizing our country and so on, and saying, they're harming our economy right now. But come on, like, we have been living in an economic crisis for some years now. So of course, like, I tweet about it. My friends put Instagram stories about it, like, I condemn the wrongdoings of the government, but it should go like beyond of that. And I think that's where journalists and not only them, but public figures, like, for example, right now there are also some influencers and actors getting detained just because they publicly supported the opposition stance in all of this. Although it sounds as scary, I think it's a must, because that's how you change the political discourse and the public opinion. And journalists play a crucial part of it.
No, absolutely. I think in order for, people to see through the propaganda, I think it's important that, there are true independent voices being sort of coming on these platforms, YouTube, TikToks, whatever. And they speak their truth, right? And provide facts and share. And I really believe, I think this is really, really courageous of people to do that, because it's definitely not easy. And again, usually it's, on the contrary, if you're just if you're a supporter of the ruling party, you can say whatever you want, for the opposition. But if you are independent, not supporting even the opposition, but you're trying to speak truth to the power, you are against, you're either detained or you are, shamed, and hate comments, flow your way. So it's pretty important what you do. And sorry for the interruption.
If you have watched this video and have enjoyed it so far, please show your support by liking this video or subscribing to our channel. That would let us know that you're interested in the content that we're making so that we can make more of it in the future.
Yes, and if you would like to appear as a guest on our show, and if you would like to inquire anything, please feel free to reach out to on our email address. We're given in the description notes. Yes.
Back to the episode. So you've been in Poland for 6 months, which is not a very long time.
Yes.
6 months means, you got here in the winter time, which is
1st of October.
1st of October.
Which was already winter for me, yeah.
Agreed. So going back, had you ever given any sort of thought to coming to Poland in the first place? What were the perceptions around Poland? What did your family say? And then what has been your impression in this very short time? And we'll go into details on that, but I want those initial thoughts first.
Okay. So in full honesty, no, Poland was not in my mind at all. So the thing is, I also hold an EU passport. So I'm also Portuguese. So for me, I had already the free mobility around EU Schengen zone. But I was living in Istanbul, and I actually wanted to have like this opportunity coming to me, and then I move like for good, because I already had like temporary experiences before in Europe, but I had in my mind and in my dream to move to a European country and start a living there, and never like to go back. To Poland, I've been here for work, visit for a couple of days 2 years ago, and it was my first time seeing it. And it was also during winter. It was in March, and it was snowing heavy. And I actually have an Instagram post during that time saying, "My Mediterranean ass is frozen. What the is this?" So that was my first honest reaction. Less did I know that it would be the country I live in 2 years, so I should have been careful what I say. So when I first got the offer, actually, I had in mind, could it be some other country? And I actually tried to negotiate it to, the people that did the offer, and they were like, no, it's going to be Warsaw. I actually had the chance to move in immediately, but then I thought to myself, I need to be psychologically prepared. And it was like summer during Turkey. And of course, like I wanted to go to the southern parts to have like proper Mediterranean summer. And I was checking like Warsaw weather, like 12. And I was like, summer is not summering for sure. So I negotiated to like stay 3 more months to prepare for it. But then my flight was on 1st of October. And one of my best friends decided to get married on 30th of September. So actually, by the time everybody was going to the after of the wedding, I went to the airport. So I was also maybe a bit emotional due to volume of alcohol, but also like I was sitting in the airport still drunk. I'm not implying that I had my first birthday here drunk, but I was in the airport and I was thinking like I'm moving somewhere else now, like I was just partying with my best friends. One of them got married, and now like I'm moving. So it was a bit of a quick transition for me. So I must say my first 2 months were quite harsh. Like I felt very much alone and at lost, not only due to not knowing the language, but I was like, what I'm doing, like I'm here now and I moved here all alone without knowing anybody. And also the cold and the darkness was not helping me. So yes, my first weeks were not as pleasant I would want it to be. Maybe one of the first things that struck me was the greenery, which helped me a lot with, thinking, okay, maybe the city has something to offer to me, like life is not that bad maybe, because that's something we lack a lot in Istanbul and in Turkey in general, like having fully accessible green public spaces. I already knew that was the case when I was living in Istanbul, but I only came into realization like how important it is to have, green public spaces in the city after I moved here. So that also helped me a lot. Like I started to have some walks on my own and to wander around the city, and slowly I built up on like having a routine and a life here.
So for the first 2 months, you did not have anyone as friends and you were feeling homesick alone.
Yeah.
Has that changed now, 6 months later?
Yes, because first I started to be less pessimistic. And
That helps.
Yes, I started to use vitamin D supplements.
Game changer. That is a game changer.
Because like first month I was basically tired all the time and sleeping, and it's really so not me, because I know I've been like eating healthy. At least that's what I say to my mom. But like I was, looking good care of myself, but I was feeling tired, and my body was like in such sore. And it turns out it was vitamin D deficiency. But in like 2 months, because I just got out of like Turkish summer, so I thought, okay, I'm already tanned, like I should have, deposited some vitamin D, but no, it was immediately gone. So that helped. But also, I started to go out with like expat gatherings and trying to find my group or my routine in the city, which helped a lot. And actually with Alexis as well. That's how we met through a common friend's gig. So I tried to, make myself open for this kind of experiences, to meet with new people. And I can say that maybe I'm not at the best position right now that I want to be, but I'm not stressing about it, at least. I'm giving myself time, because sometimes I think it's been 6 months already, Verda, and, you did, nothing. But then I say, no, it's been just 6 months and I did,
Glass half full.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So how has making friends been here in Warsaw? Has it been easy? It's only been 6 months, which is not a lot of time.
Yes.
Yes. So how has that experience been? What have you had to do to try and build a social circle? And then what would you advise other people to do?
Yes. So maybe to start from the advice, be patient, because that's what I was not doing and I was forgetting. And of course, I was stressing myself a lot about it. Yes, like I moved here on my own. I knew some of my colleagues, but basically I had no friends when I moved here. And I think not only here, but like overall, when somebody moves, it's of course like hard to make new friends, but you should be open for it and seek for opportunities. So what I realized after a couple of meltdowns and mental health crisis, I reopened my Facebook account, because I saw that there are some active communities around there, and I started to post on those groups. Introducing myself briefly, saying I'm a newcomer to the city. And actually, it's true, one of those posts that I found my right now closest friend. She's Greek. So, of course, we immediately clicked. She told me she also recently moved. And we said, okay, let's meet for a coffee. And then she introduced me to some of her colleagues. And then through them, I got to know some other people. So time passed and I realized I have, some acquaintances, at least. Of course, I cannot say, I have, my group of people now, it's going to take much more time for that. But I started to get to know people from different backgrounds, industries, and different experiences in Warsaw. Moreover, I started to seek for some like hobby groups or, new activities that I can start to meet with people. So again, through mostly social media, I found out some like hobby groups or some like expat meets up, like weekly or, like bi-weekly, some after work drinks or, like pub quiz nights and so on. And I attended to such activities, again, like meeting friends. These, for instance, are not activities I would do in my hometown, because you already live within a bubble, so you don't, actively seek for new hobbies all the time. So it was a bit overwhelming, but I, said to myself, I'll be open about it to meet with new people. I went on some hike trips, which was really interesting. I got to meet with people. It was my first hike ever in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And it was with a group of 15, 16 people, and I attended like on my own, but everybody else was an expat as well. So, and we were doing something challenging together. It was during a snowstorm, and we were going uphill for like 5.5 hours. And so it sort of like bonded us. And of course, like 5.5 hours, you have to, talk to them, and, it was really good experience. So I'm still, looking for the coming days and weeks for such, activities that I can do, and I'm enjoying it so far.
Yeah, but this is one of the questions that we get on our Expats in Warsaw page a lot, where, how do we make friends? I've just moved in, to Warsaw or to Poland, and I'm isolated. I don't know anyone. How do I make friends? So I think that answer of yours and like putting yourself out there in awkward, uncontrollable situations, and then see how people react, and maybe you'll be able to find a gem, from a bunch of different kind of people who would, who you'd click with. So, and then, you end up being friends with them. So, and I'm happy for you that you actually put yourself out there and you're going on that journey to make friends, because yeah, it is difficult otherwise. And it's hard moving to a new country all by yourself. And then if you don't find your people, it's even harder, I feel. Yeah. So,
but you've lived you've lived in Brussels before, and you also lived in Paris before. So it wouldn't be your first rodeo, so to speak, in terms of moving somewhere new. Were those cities easier to make friends? And if so, how? Or would you say that it was like a similar level of challenges, because being in a new place is challenging overall?
Okay, so maybe I can say Paris was, both Brussels as well, was easy to me in the sense that I also speak French. So the language, of course, like I'm not fluent whatsoever, but the language barrier was almost non-existent. Plus, I was 21 in one of them and 23 in the other one. So of course, also my mindset and my life at the time was, let's say, more open to such experiences. In Brussels, since it was a traineeship that I attended to, I found a lot of friendships from the work, because it was people more or less my age. And the fact that the city is such an expat city, actually. Like when I was there, I think I met with only a few Brussels-born people compared to like people that moved to Brussels for working in one of the EU institutions, like coming from any, EU country. So this collective experience of being an expat made it easier for us to bond. But also, again, maybe I cannot generalize, but my friends there were more from South Europe, and yeah, maybe I can say like more in terms of cultural proximity, like cultures that I'm more familiar with, So it was, again, easier for me to click with, because I'm coming from a culture, where maybe you can see that I talk a lot, like we are always collectively living, our society is not really individualistic, like we are very close to, the people in the streets and, to our friends and families. Whereas what I observed here, that there is more of a reserved individualism, which is of course like understandable, which maybe increases more with the decreasing temperature of weather, like and so on. And it's also coincided that I moved here like during the winter. So I found it at first more challenging to actually make friends here. In terms of language barrier, I must say that was one of the biggest obstacles. Also the fact that, it's dark and cold in winter. So of course it affects your, like mental and physical well-being, that maybe you're less prone to do an activity or, to socialize. And not actually, as the weather is getting nicer, I see that, it's becoming easier to communicate with people, and they want to do, some activities.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, the city just, when the weather changes, which right now we're getting psyched out, right? We get 20 degrees one day and then -1 the next. But like the city just kind of explodes. Like you look outside and everybody's on
I think it's a pop of color.
Yeah.
Yeah. It goes from like gray and black to like all sort of colors. You know, from May onwards, I think.
Yeah.
So I think those months in Warsaw and overall Poland, I think is just beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think you're sort of up for it.
Looking forward to you to see it.
Yeah, that's what everybody has been telling me. Like whomever I met was saying, you know, like I kind of felt a bit depressed in my, you know, time here at the beginning, and they all were like, "Can't wait for the summer." I'm waiting for it to solve all my problems. You know, like okay.
It's true. I had this friend, and she used to say that you come to Poland in the summer, and then you just love it. But then you have to remember Poland in the summer to get through the winter. It says there's no other way to get through.
I have no vision of it yet.
Correct. So you're drowning in the sorrow of it.
No, but that's what happened to me, right? So when I moved, I came in October of 2014 for the first time in Poland, and the day I landed, it was snowing, it was dark, it was sort of harsh. Yeah, for me who had come in from October, India in October is like, you know, mid-30s. So it was beautiful weather, and I ended up in Poland expecting more like 15, 16 degrees temperature. It wasn't. It was like -5 or something. And then I had to, first thing I bought in Poland was like a big coat. I had to protect myself from the harsh winters. And then it was going to be a look and see trip for me, for, you know, to make a decision whether or not I'll be moving to Poland or not. And I made the decision that I'm not going to move here based on, you know, no one was sort of interested in talking to me. And at that point in time, 10 years ago, when I first came here, there were not a lot of people like me, right, who looked like me, or Indians, or, you know, I would probably see another Indian in every 1 month or so. But now things have changed, of course, and Warsaw has become more international. And it was a hard decision. But, you know, my girlfriend, now wife, convinced me to take this. And I'm so happy that she did, because I was going to make a decision based on what I saw in October. But then when I went through the summer, it was just amazing. And then, you know, I made some great relationships since then with people, right? And Polish people are known to be, you know, they're closed at first, but then once you know, sort of peel layer by layer, they're beautiful people. They're very welcoming, accepting, and respectful of all other cultures and people of different diversities, I would say.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I find that to be quite healthy, actually, you know, like to have sort of a barrier at first. Like, even though, as I said, I come from a culturally like open society, I am also individually more, you know, I have a barrier when it comes to like people I meet, you know, like I want to first, you know, like collect some memories or, you know, some insights, you know, about them, so that I can come into conclusion if, you know, it's someone that I can, you know, include in my bubble, in my, you know, life. I could share, I don't know, my privacy whatsoever. And once that barrier is broken, I loosen up completely, you know. So in that sense, I really like that there is this like culture in Poland.
Yeah, and it's something that comes up a lot, like really frequently. I came first time in the summer, so I don't know, because I got depressed later, but I had the memory
Postponed.
Yeah, it was postponed. But it's a topic that comes up a lot, like with regards to how quickly, you know, different cultures open up to other people, right? So if you're from maybe a more Southern European country, you'd be more open more right away. And from where I come from, people tend to be perceived as super friendly at first, like right at first. And you know, in Poland, it just takes a little more time, which I actually really like, you know, not so much in the winter, but like in general. But how people interact with those differences is really interesting. Some people are more, like for me, it was very comfortable that it took such a long time, and it does. It takes like some time making memories, investment, having friendship before a true friendship develops.
I also realize, especially with locals, if you at least attempt to speak their language, it makes a difference. Like for a lot of months, I was convinced that my Żaka lady was hating me. I was so convinced, because I had one like down my building, and like I had zero Polish like when I moved, and you know, I was asking for, you know, like milk, you know, like, milk, and she was like nie angielski, you know, like just, you know, that face, you know, telling me to not buy milk that day. You know? But now that I started, even at dziękuję or like dzień dobry, I feel like she's liking me, you know. Yeah, it makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference. It's a huge difference, and I think I've never moved to Poland without speaking Polish, so I don't have that. It's kind of like with you in Brussels and Paris, that like the language barrier was non-existent. So I've never experienced that, but I have noticed, because my husband is Nigerian and he didn't speak any Polish.
but he would say thanks to our shop lady who he was also convinced hated him, and the smile, it just made her smile. So the language makes a huge difference. Did the language barrier play a role in making friends? Because I imagine you're working for this media company, right?
Yes.
And I assume the working language is English.
Yes, but all my colleagues are Polish actually.
Okay.
So I could say it mostly affects me having some like chit chat or small talk with them. Of course, for like business related topics or emails or, like inner office conversations, like we are having it in English.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of a level of English, it's sufficient for everyone. But I understand, it's even harder to socialize in a language that's not your like native language. And I actually like to befriend my colleagues, at least to get to know them and to have like a chit chat, which is something like I'm struggling with a bit, because I know like nobody is doing it on the bad way, but I hear a lot of Polish like in the office. And I'm curious, is there somebody talking about their boyfriend? I don't know, like about their weekend trip, and I want to know. Exactly. But I want to learn. Like I already decided, I think, like at the beginning of the year that I need to learn. Because before moving here, I was told that it's a growing, expat community. Warsaw is becoming a hub, like a lot of international companies are moving here. So I was assuming, English would be sufficient and it would just, be adequate if I learn like basic survival level of Polish. But actually, I must say that I've been to, I don't know, like doctor visits, some bureaucratic visits and so on. And I think you need a little more than a survival level Polish here, like at least, an intermediate level to have a more comfortable life.
Yeah, especially like any public services for sure. It's very difficult to have a working understanding of the language. Bureaucracy, doctors, trying to think what else, post office is another one.
Okay.
When they leave that slip and they don't actually leave your package, then you have to go and kind of contend with that. So you're going to start taking classes, or how do you want to approach that?
Yes. So I mean, with the word, probably we are going to find like the best institution for that. For work in particular, I don't need Polish. And I've been recommended a lot of like free courses or some big institutions or some like private tutors, but I want to see, especially for my needs, like what would be the best place to go for it. So yeah, I will start on that soon, hopefully.
Great. So what has been your favorite thing about Poland so far? And then also the most challenging, but it can be the winter.
Okay. So the favorite thing I must say is the food culture, because I'm coming from a big food culture country, and no, I don't mean kebab only. We have. Please put this part in big. Kebab is not the main Turkish food. There is much better Turkish cuisine things that I here recommend everybody to try. Okay, jokes aside. Food and the culture around it is a very big thing in Turkey, you might know. Apart from, delicacies, just having like big tables, if somebody is celebrating something, somebody had a breakup, we just needed an excuse to drink and eat, like we always gather in like those big tables. And I find here actually that food as well is very inherent in the culture, which I like a lot. Before moving here, of course, I had a certain expectation about Eastern European cuisine, and actually it totally fits for me. Like I like my like dough, my sweets, meats, so I think it's a good fit for me. But I wasn't expecting it to be this good. Like I must say, for the last 6 months, any restaurant or cafe or like a pastry or whatever I tried had been very delicious. I find it to be very good in quality, the food quality, I must say, and especially I think restaurants, like they seem to be of good quality. So that's I think one of my favorite aspects about Warsaw. I can also say cleanliness, because again I compare it with Istanbul, but also other European capitals I've been to. It's very clean, which is a good aspect. It's quite safe. Like maybe we can talk about it later. But as a woman, I feel very safe here, and of course it's very important. what I dislike, let's say, maybe the slow pace of everything. Because
Really?
I find here to be very slow. And I am the most impatient person you can meet. I was born 7.5 months. I couldn't wait for longer, I had my time, like that was enough. And again, like coming from Turkey, if you're slow, you die. It's not like you have, because everything is like very dynamic. Like
But slow in what sense, though?
I don't know. Like I can only talk, of course, in terms of so far the bureaucratic processes I've been, but also how work is getting done. People are not stressing about fixing things and I don't know, making work done, because they are more focused on their personal growth, which I think is a perfect thing. That I find it to be more healthy to do that. Or whenever a problem arises, again in work or somewhere, people are not panicking. Whereas again, like I'm coming from a country where we are angry and stressful all the time. But actually, I'm glad that I'm learning to be at ease and peace here. But sometimes since I'm more of a like impatient person, and I like things to move quickly, especially when it comes to work. Actually, it's a bit like challenging.
Yeah,
So it's a personal growth area for me as well.
No, I think it takes a bit of getting used to, right? So again, I think there's some similar in terms of, we have invented a term called jugaad, which is figuring out a solution. It could be a tactical solution rather than a more permanent strategic solution. So, we'll do a tactical fix, like we'll make it work for another day, then we'll see it again. Those are usually the quick wins, right? And here I felt that, like you said, I think people are more focused on getting it right rather than getting in, quick and dirty, right? So they just want to make sure that, we'll take more time to just ask the, person who wants it done today. That'll take probably 10 more days, but we will do it right. So that's their approach. Even in the healthcare as well, like I would say that even in India, when I go to a doctor, they will just look at my symptoms and they will prescribe me something. Here, the doctors would want to do all the tests before they prescribe me anything, right? So they want to know everything before they actually plan and try to solution something.
Right.
Which I think those are two different approaches, and each has its pros and cons. And I'm not saying that one is right or one is wrong, but
That's so interesting, because I think that I come from a very fast-paced place too, and my mom, when she visits, she's like, "It's so slow here." I don't find Warsaw slow anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I find Krakow really slow.
I've never been here.
Like, God forbid you need the check. Lord have mercy. It will take days. Whereas I find Warsaw like much faster. I guess on a private day-to-day level, like if you're at a restaurant or you're in the shops or whatever, I find that moves at a good pace. The trains come on time, the metro comes on time, like all these things. You order an Uber and you can't even put your shoes on because it's here. Like it's 1 minute, But I do think this work culture that you're talking about, because Poland, I think, is considered one of the more productive countries of Europe, right? Well, most Northern European countries are, but one of the more
because
productive.
they don't do siesta,
They don't do stuff. And I think a lot of Polish people complain sometimes they don't have as many vacation days as like Germany or whoever else has more vacation days. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's interesting. It's considered a faster culture. But I think one of the reasons I came here and then I just stayed was because I didn't feel like I was always on fire. Like coming from in LA, it's always like, oh, everything's an emergency. And your anxiety levels are quite high. Or in New York, where I live before I moved here. Whereas for the first time, it's not being on fire all the time. And that took me time to get used to as well.
So Warsaw is a city that sleeps.
Yeah, I guess, comparatively.
I agree with that, and I also find it very important because it also like shook me seeing here like the work-life balance is quite settled, I must say, because again like to compare it with Turkey, work is something you are most associated with, like people are more interested in like what work you do, like where are you working and how much you work, like it values you, like you're valued over the amount of work you do. And there are a couple of reasons for that, because unfortunately it might be really easy for you to get fired, and there is this association of like working more hours and more tasks so that you could prove yourself, whereas it's not necessarily the case. Like the more you work doesn't mean that you are
Exactly. I think hardworking is a trait that people sort of value a lot. Although not necessarily all the time, the hardworking person is the most smartest or looking for the best solutions, right? So they're just spending more time in the office rather than getting things done. Yeah, I think, like it's usually, I think in the developing economies, I think that's sort of a principle that exists.
And here I see people are more focused on their time, and like extra work time, what they do in that time, but also within the work as well. I see in the company I'm working, but also my friends here working in different industries, that our companies are quite involved in I don't know, values and stuff like diversity, equality, like not necessarily like work related stuff, but also engaging in activities to promote that kind of, professional and personal growth aspects as well. Which again was something different than what I was accustomed to, because as you explained like a couple of minutes ago in Istanbul, we were all like, okay, we don't have to think through on how to do something the best way, but the more important is to do it the practical way and quickest as possible. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that, the outcome will be as desired. So here, yes, I think things are moving slowly, but as you explained, like more thought through and possibly yielding also better results, since it has been, put in a plan and whatever. But it requires a lot of patience.
For sure. So segueing to maybe another life of yours, because back to the Alexis's question, what else you don't like? Yeah, and we were talking offline about your dating life. Maybe you want to expand on that.
Okay.
Sorry for putting you on spot.
It's fine. It's my favorite topic. I don't know, but so yeah, I moved here as a single woman, and I thought, okay, I'm a single woman, still in her 20s. I have like 2 weeks for it, but so I thought, okay, I'd be a catch, like a foreigner, single woman coming here, but no, it wasn't the case. So similar to like finding friends, of course, again, it's very difficult to date and flirt in a language that you cannot even make the jokes, you have to change your humor. Like when I think about it, like going on a date or, like talking, flirting with someone, of course you want to make jokes, or, you want to express yourself your most open and transparent way, but you cannot do it when you're translating stuff.
It's true. It really does add an element. Well, it adds a barrier, I think. And we were talking with the previous guest about this, how like humor is so nuanced, and you don't really usually realize it when you're working in your own language, but you really start to realize it when you're working in a language that's not your own. And so you've had to make efforts towards this.
Yes, so I've been in some like social gatherings, but also some apps, but not only for dating apps, but like on Instagram, I also came across this now popular app. I don't know if we can name it, like, or is it gonna feel like
We can name it, we can cut it.
time left? I don't know. So it's dinners with strangers concept. So for example, that one is not like dating intended, but basically you sign up for a dinner, you have no idea where and with whom it's going to happen. You just explain. Yeah, it's very. So I was first a bit scared.
Yeah.
But I didn't have anything to lose, so I was like, okay, take my money. So basically,
You have your money to lose, but
yeah, true. But in the end, it turned out to be quite good, because I have now some friends that I met through that dinner. So basically, you tell a bit about yourself to the algorithm, and the algorithm matches you with people who it thinks you are compatible in terms of your like political views or your hobbies or whatever. And then the day before, no, not even the day before, the morning of that day, it tells you, okay, tonight at 7, you have a dinner arranged at this restaurant in your city with 5 other strangers.
Ooh, that's interesting.
It's very interesting. I actually had like married people, or like people that recently moved to Warsaw like me, or just a Polish girl, who was open for meeting new people coming to the table. But of course, the first 5 minutes, everybody was like, hello, like, what's your name?
Yeah.
Where are you from? But by the end of the night, we all were like, oh my God, like jokes and drinks. And
so is there a moderator who's sort of moderating this, or is just the strangers meeting for the first time? And
exactly.
That's such an interesting concept. What was it called? Time lift?
Time left. Yeah.
That's super interesting. I would do that. I would try that. Especially because it's a group.
Yeah. So, of course, like I didn't like do it for dating purposes, but I was after all this like tricks to meet with people, not necessarily to be romantically involved, but for whatever experience it's gonna bring, But in terms of more dating life, for some reason it's not going uphill, but I'm not stressing about it. Like it's okay. I'm enjoying along the ride, but yeah, I'm still single, so.
Wait for the summer, okay? Yeah, wait for the summer.
So, can you tell us, what other cities you've explored in Poland? How do you compare other cities, right? So you've been to, a few more cities as we were talking.
Yeah, not much yet. But so in December, I had a friend visiting me from Amsterdam. She's my best friend. She lives there for 10 years now. And I wanted to go to a Christmas market because, it's not a thing in Turkey. So I wanted the full experience, and I asked to some locals and they recommended me Wrocław, if I'm pronouncing correctly. They said it's the biggest in across Poland, and it was actually really cute. I liked it there. I think I liked the sort of Benelux architecture there. This triangular roofs, and it was. Of course, I just saw the main square and a couple of streets around it. But I found it to be really nice. Then with another friend visiting, we went to Poznan. Also for a day trip. I really liked the food there because then again from locals I was recommended that I might find the best pierogis there actually. I don't know why, but really I really liked the food I had there. And then for this hike trip we went to a city near the Slovakian border, Żywiec, which is also known for its water and beer brand. I didn't enjoy the city that much actually because it was, very small. I think it's more known for its mountain and also the industrial production. So I wouldn't recommend it for a sightseeing and whatsoever. But the mountain was really nice, and also the beer factory I think was worth to visit. So yeah.
Okay. You've been to Poznan too, right?
Yes.
How did you like Poznan? That's the one city I haven't been to.
Well, it was very small.
Okay.
I think it's Old Town Square was a typical Old Town Square you could find literally in any European city. They have a historically important church there, which might be worth to see because I was, if I recall correctly, I think it's the first church that was built after Poland turned to Christianity or something like that. So it's actually from that century. So it's I think could be cool to see that. But apart from that, it was really nice just strolling around the old market. It was cheaper than Warsaw. I think the other cities I've been as well were comparing to Warsaw for cheap in food.
Warsaw's experienced a lot of inflation in the last couple of years. It's becoming very comparable to other Western European cities in terms of price.
I agree. I just want to also sort of, expand on what you said earlier on the things that you liked about Warsaw when you first moved. So Warsaw being safe, I think I do agree with that, statement that you made. I think Warsaw is one of the safest cities probably in all of Europe. But do you want to share some of your experiences since the time you've moved here, and how do you compare it with other European cities or, you're in Istanbul that you've sort of lived most of your life?
Yes. So I can immediately say I never felt safe in Istanbul, going out on my own. Especially, if I would drink or, it's big. For example, I was living in the Asian side, whereas most nightlife or, the vivid parts were in the European side. So, of course, late at night, I would have to cross the Bosphorus Bridge and go back home, which is quite a way. And I would always plan ahead thinking that, for example, if a friend would invite me to a birthday party or whatsoever, a drink out night, I would think if there's a way I could come back with another friend who lives close by, or if I'm gonna be on my own, sometimes I would, say no, sorry, the way back, I will not feel safe or whatsoever. Or of course I would always be calling my parents when I'm on the way back, or if I, have when I had a boyfriend, I would, call them on the way when I was in the taxi, just to, show that there's someone waiting for me, and whatsoever. These kind of tricks I found myself not doing, not, applying to at all since I moved here. of course, like we must agree that everybody is comparing it from where they are coming. Like I'm not in a position to say like maybe it's a safe city, you know, like maybe for some people it might actually be not. But I never came into an instance where I didn't feel safe here. Knock on the wood. That's good. Comparing it with other cities I've lived in, when I was living there, actually, like my ideal of like Europe was those cities, you know, like Brussels, Paris. I was thinking I'm at the center of it, you know, like. But now seeing Warsaw, I realized that those cities were not as safe or, you know, as clean or as comfortable. Like now I realize that in Brussels as well, I would still be, you know, applying all those tricks to feel myself at safe. Whereas here, as I said, like, no, I feel more.
Was that something that was like deliberate, or did you find that your instinct to do those things just kind of disappeared? Like for example, like I know these tricks, I use them all the time, you know, when I lived in New York or in LA or wherever it was. And I don't use them here either. But was it a deliberate step, or did you just look back and be like, I haven't felt the need to do those things?
I think it was a combination of both, like, because before I moved here, of course, like, I needed to consult some people because I had my doubts. Like, I was thinking, okay, Poland, but like, what is it like there? You know, I had no, you know, vision of the life here. And the first thing everybody told me that those that knew about Warsaw, they said immediately, you're going to be safe. Like, it's safe. But of course, you know, I cannot take that granted. Like, I wanted to see it as well. And yeah, over time, I learned things. Like, for example, I remember one time I went to a bar, and like I was looking for a place to like leave my stuff somewhere. And a local friend told me like you can put it anywhere. Like nobody's gonna like bother with your stuff. And for me, it's unimaginable. You know, like what do you mean I'm gonna leave my scarf there and nobody's gonna pee on it or like take it? You know, like. Yeah, so I over time like learned about this kind of stuff as well. But maybe I was lucky that I cannot, as I said, like fully think that it's safe. But especially it matters to me that as a woman, I don't feel that constant weight of fear, you know, when I'm on the streets, and it already betters my whole day and experience.
Yeah, it's a huge difference when you're constantly thinking about like, how am I gonna, because it's true, when you live in bigger cities that maybe are a lot less safe, you are thinking about how you're getting home from before you even left your house. Yeah. And like the safest way to get there, and then like, okay, if metro's closed, then what's open, and who am I calling, and which taxi am I calling, like all these things, whereas here you kind of just go with it. And I do think there's something to be said though about, I mean, like you said, you can't take it for granted, but leaving your stuff somewhere, more often than not, you are going to find it there when you come back looking for it. And it's happened to me on several occasions where I've like left my phone in a grocery store. And then I don't realize I left it.
Yeah, I think 9 out of 10 times you'll find it.
You will find it. Yeah, exactly where you left it. A friend of mine, and she was a guest on the show, she lost her entire phone, like by the river or whatever. And she was like freaking out, wondering where it was, all these things. And it turns out she had her ID in there, her money in there, like the phone case, everything. The next morning, the next day, some guy found her on Facebook with her ID and gave everything like that.
Yeah, my wife also lost her phone one time, you know, and he could just find my phone, and we found it. One time, although she lost her wallet, she could again locate where the wallet was because, you know, someone tried to make a purchase from the card. So where the card was, because we already cancelled it. So we found out where the card was, but then there was some cash in the wallet. So that was taken away. That's only one bad incident that I've come across. But like I said, 9 out of 10 times you will find your belongings back.
Of course, it's a matter of inside where somebody is a good first need to ask. But yeah, I think it seems in general.
Yeah, I mean, don't leave your wallet places if you can.
Yeah.
But if you do, it is highly likely that it'll still be.
Yeah, mostly you'll find it back. And with that said, I think what makes Poland safe also is people. The public transport system is amazing, right? The metros are running till quite late, and people would rely on them. There are night buses. There are also, you know, Ubers and Bolt and all those taxi services which are available at quite a decent price. So again, from that perspective, I think Warsaw is kind of safe, and I think overall Poland, I would say more or less, is on the same sort of level, I would say.
Yeah, knock on wood. That
Yeah, exactly, and you know, thanks to all the locals, the administrations, to, you know, making sure that it stays that way. So I think it's pretty important, and I think all people who are moving from their own countries need to continue to sort of
Maintain that.
right? And we don't want to disrupt, any of the process that's been set up by the governments and the administration. And keep the city clean. I think that's everyone's duty, I would say.
Okay, so that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining us, Verda, and for having this conversation. Yes, and if you are also new to Warsaw and are interested in making new friends, maybe you'd like to meet Verda, please, where can people reach you if they want to?
Feel free to add me on Instagram or send a message. My Instagram handle is Verda Uyar.
And we'll include that in the description below so that you can...
Thank you so much, Verda, for being on the show. And thanks for all your interesting stories, interesting takes about the world politics, Turkish politics precisely, and, your insights about Poland and your life so far in Poland. And we wish you all the best for your, future endeavors.
And have a great summer. If it ever comes.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.